Good evening, everyone. Time for episode 20 of Kerr's Rage, part 1 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga, by me. Today's episode will start on page 212, the chapter title Lycurgus. He was over 500 years old, and he spent the last 400 or so of those years in the world of the sun. His eyes were still the blood-red color of his ancestors, and unlike those dark elves born into the surface world, his eyes had never changed. They were still best suited for a lightless world, and that was one of the secrets of his power. His son's eyes had changed from red to the blue of the sky in his first year of life, and bright light was no bother to him. But to Lycurgus, the sun's unshielded light was debilitating. Yet a cloak's cowl could do much, and he carried on his missions with little handicap. This fact worked to his advantage in dealing with the Red Orcs, for they tolerated no visible weakness in their leaders. Considering the fact that he now led 4,000 of them, his strength had to be unquestionable. Lycurgus knew that the Red Orcs were the most advanced of all the goblin races, capable of surviving in almost any environment, and able to eat plants and animals that would prove poisonous to man and elf alike. In stature they are greater than most men are, and their strength is akin to the great apes of the southern jungles. Their skin is as thick and resilient as tree bark, and as red as hard-baked clay. In silhouette, they almost resemble mankind, but their facial features and great musculature reveal their true nature. Their eyes tend towards brown hues. In their powerful square jaws house bone-crushing teeth in a predator's canines. Their ears are rear-swept and pointed, as if the gods made them in mockery of the Lyle Salfar, and their hair is thick and dark like a lion's mane. But what sets them above others of goblin kind is not their great physical prowess, but rather it is their advanced cunning. For they had long ago learned to use tools in all manner of weapons, and they'd even developed religion and advanced culture. The orcs he led were orcs such as these. They were not ordinary goblins, nor were they mindless trolls. They were the red orcs of legend. The recent turn of events was placing his competence in question. His captains had failed him many times in their search for the objects of the campaign. They had been unsuccessful in finding the scepter in Nordtown, and he was loath to return to Vlad without it. The Dark Knight, Og Elvenbane, and his mercenaries had failed to recover the gypsy necklace to the south, and it was rumored that a small band of interlopers were responsible. If these meddlers were some kind of enemy spies, then they would have to be dealt with. He suspected, but he could not be sure, that he'd met them before. But for now, he had to concentrate on their main objective. Andriol had been certain that the device was nearby, and he had never known her scrying abilities to fail. And so, with the destruction of Nordtown complete, he sent out several war parties to search the remaining countryside. He would lead their march northward with their spoils of war. His army was strong, but he couldn't risk facing the bulk of Lord Cherrick's forces in open conflict. And so they passed on, with wagons laden with gold and riches and long chains of healthy slaves. His orc chieftains believed that the raid was a great victory, and their growing confidence in their new allies was a positive step. Unfortunately, there could be no partial successes in this campaign. If any of their company failed, they would be labeled traitors to Dragonia and their lives forfeit. When their army had encamped for the night, he contacted Andriol through his spider mirror. It was one of the necromancer's creations, both a communications and transporting device, and as such, it was a most valuable tool. We sacked the city and found nothing. I need a more accurate reading if I am to succeed. My initial visions were blurred by protective magic. Every time I directed my gaze toward a certain area, a subtle illusion would lead me astray. And now you have been seen beyond these illusions? I have discovered an old crone, perhaps a witch or seeress, living in the forest to the northeast of your army. There is a path and a certainty of danger. I believe that the witch is powerful, and she is sure to have laid many traps for you. Beware, wolf driver. I will send my orcs, for they of all my subjects have failed me the least. Excellent. I will inform the commander of your successes. For the might of Dragonia. Good night, General. Her playfully condescending reply told him that his failures were forgiven, at least for now. He would send his most experienced war master with a contingent of orcs to search the seeress's home. His summons was answered in short order. Urg, assemble a powerful company. I want you to lead them northeast into the forest. There you will find an old witch who may possess the item that we seek. Kill her and search her home. Bring me the scepter, by whatever means that you must. The threat of failure was clearly evident in his voice. Commander, Urg said, we will not fail. And without further ado, he gathered up his warriors and led them off through the forest trails that would lead them toward their destination. He was the largest and strongest of his kind, and lesser orcs called him War Master. He led by his superior strength and the crushing weight of his war club, and his orcs of similar stature went. He was among the greatest of them. The many notches on his club recorded his prowess in battle, but he hadn't achieved his rank through strength alone, for only his intelligence had kept him alive long enough to reach his true potential. If this human woman was a witch, then he would have to be wary. His culture's superstition gave him cause to fear, but he was not prone to panic. Despite his misgivings, he wasn't willing to underestimate the hag's power. He intended to fall upon her quickly and waste no time in killing her. Nordtown's innocent. Kalor cast a spell of reading again at dawn, and as he suspected, the magic that had prevented him from reading it before was gone. He felt certain that he had deciphered the hidden command words necessary to activate the magic of the necklace, but those words told him nothing of its hidden properties, and he feared what would happen if he tried to use it on some mortal creature. Would the victim of its magic simply be trapped in some extra-dimensional space within the necklace's gem? Or would a mortal find himself in a prison without air, his life forfeit? He suspected that its magic was not designed to kill, only ensnare, but he had no intention of trying to use it on any of his friends. When he had a chance, he would study it further, for although he had learned its command words, he had not found the key to removing it from his neck. But now the crushing weight of the demon was gone, and he felt free again. For now, there were more important matters at hand. Wake up, Kerr, Tarek urged. Time to break camp and make for the village. Breakfast? Biscuits and cheese today, wine master. Kalor didn't cook. That's what happens when you put a gnome in charge of the grub. They're always thinking of more important things than their stomach. It's not practical, if you ask me. Maybe we should find a new cook. Dwarven men aren't the best choices over a stove, Ranger, unless that stove happens to be a forge. I'll keep my eyes open then. See that you do, or we're all sure to starve. Hunger brought thoughts of his own home and hearth and the fine cooking of his mother, memories of boy who had warmed his heart as he packed his gear. He was the last to be woken, but the first one ready to move out. None of his companions were quite sure how he could go from one to the other so quickly. When he asked about it, he would only say that he was good at sorting things. From the pass, there was a main road leading into the village, and they chose to follow it for speed. Riding into the valley, they soon discovered the first signs of battle. Even several miles from Nordtown, the bodies of soldiers and refugees rested here and there, where red orc clubs had smashed their skulls, or spears pierced their bodies. Ahead of them, they could see a small round tower through which a swift brook passed. The fort was both a bridge and a guard post, standing some 40 feet in height, with a crenellated battlement. It was here that the tale of battle grew. Several men and elves had chosen to make their last stand there. Orcs and several of their great dogs lay dead around it, but though they searched the defenders for signs of life, they found none. Riding on, the carnage grew with every cantering step of their horses. 100 yards from town, the ground was littered with orcs pierced unto death by arrows or slingers' stones. The immense area over which the dead lay implied that the orcs had come with a tremendous host. They could indeed imagine the horror of facing such an overwhelming enemy. Nordtown village was no more. The last remnants of the town's buildings still smoldered, as the fires that consumed them devoured the last available fuel. Only a few fib-like pieces of the building's frame still stood here and there, defiant to the last. Of the many structures that had once been Nordtown, only one was left standing. It rose from the village square like a monument. It was Baron Dutching's church. I must urge caution here, Kerr said. There's no telling what fiendish traps the orcs might have left for us, or what wounded beasts might lie in wait upon the battlefield, ready to thrust a dagger from their dying hands into an unwary foe. Carmen was quick to heed his words, for his cautious ways had saved them many times before. Work in teams, search each body, be ready for anything. With her leading them through the square, they examined all the bodies lying in the field before the church. Searching with blades drawn, they found none left alive, neither orc, nor beast, nor man. The church still stood as it had since it was built. It was made in the shape of a great house, with its topmost spires soaring to some 50 feet. Its roof sloped steeply with slate shingles, and its walls were made from great heavy stones, expertly shaped and mortared. Its frame was well engineered and built to last, with peg and beam in the strongest hardwoods. Its body had withstood the siege, but its doors and windows had not. These were broken down and smashed in. Orc bodies were piled up upon its steps and around its windows. Beneath them lay the broken remnants of defending knights, their bodies crushed, their tabards shredded. The great doors that had shielded its worshippers from the elements had been smashed asunder. It appeared as if a great tree-sized fist had torn through them. The defenders had made their last valiant stand inside. Archers had loosed their final arrows from its windows, and pikemen had stood fast by the doors against a relentless onslaught. The luckiest of them had been killed quickly by the orcs' own cruel bolts, but 2 swordsmen had stood defiantly to the last, and the orcs had mutilated them in their savagery. The cathedral's pews had been smashed, and the church's once great stained-glass windows were shattered. The broken panes had left behind a legacy of glittering shards, scattered over the bodies of the dead. The morning sun's rays danced across them, as if the goddess herself was sorrowful. But the greatest horror of all lay before them upon the central days. For the orcs had sacrificed a human child to their unholy god. By all of the gods, how could they do this? Carmen asked. The orcs have shamans as evil as you are good, Tarek answered. They would defile this holy place as a warning to us. So many innocents dead, and for what? Tracing the soft lines of the child's face with her hand, tears welled up from the spring at her heart. How can the living remain standing when grief steals their own life away? It's not my way, but I know some who would pray. Drawing her untarnished short sword, she raised it to the sky. Then I shall pray. May Ilmatar ease the suffering of these pained souls, and may she allow them into Kalevala, where they may find peace where they will. She held her sword aloft for a time, all the while searching within herself for some answer, but she found none. Beside her, Tarek cried, and she knew that he cried not for the fallen nor for himself. He cried for her, and so simple a thing seemed to her a blessing, and hope sprang up within her anew. Darton and Leander sang a song of old, to honor the heroes that had left them. Gathering a great quantity of unburned wood, they formed a huge pyre, and reverently placed the bodies of the dead upon it. Kalor and Kerr collected what baubles the fallen had upon them that would perhaps be of value to their surviving families, and secured them in the church. Their labor was long and harrowing, and by nightfall They had done all that they could. Tarek stood by them watching the flames for a long time, as if it stirred within him memories of the past. Kalor thought that he heard him speak to them, as if the dead rose before his very eyes. Go, kindred spirits, may fire cleanse your souls and speed you unto heaven. We must find a proper resting place for the child, Carmen said. Will you help me, Kalor? I need your help to know what to look for. We must find a spot of earth where no blood has been shed, where the sun shines at dawn, and where the grass will grow tall and green. They searched for some time around the church, and it was Carmen that found the perfect spot amid the ruined gardens of the courtyard. They labored long with the knight's abandoned shield, digging a proper place in the earth. Cleaning the baby's body as she would have bathed their own child, she wrapped her in a warm blanket to protect her in the afterlife. And there she laid the baby to rest, crying for the loss of life and for her mother. And with her dagger's point she carved a eulogy upon the shield and laid it down upon the grave. I beseech thee, knight, to protect this child and deliver her safely into the hands of God. And the shield simply read, Here lies a child, pure and innocent of heart. The company searched the remaining bodies of the fallen for signs of life. They combed every unburned inch of the town, praying that they might, by some miracle, find someone left alive. They never stopped to rest, for they knew that if the roles were reversed, then they would hope that someone would do the same for them. They searched far and wide across the town. The dead lay everywhere, frozen in the sickly contortions of their final moments, and it seemed that there would be no miracles on this battlefield. But when their hunt was coming to a close, they saw a small pair of boots protruding from under the bodies of 2 dead orcs. It was a young elf pinned beneath them, and he was alive. He had been badly brained, but he awoke beneath their helping hands. Wake up, sleepyhead, Kurt chided. The fight's over. What? Who are you? Call me Keg, elf pup. You've been out for a day or two. The orcs. Oh, my head. Do you have any water? We'll have to wait and see if the priest says it's okay. I've seen men die from head wounds like yours. What's your name, lad? Dow Greylinks. The orcs have taken my wife. Don't worry. She'll be all right for a few days at least. She won't be any use to them dead, and I think that Tarek is spoiling to go after them anyway. I'm going either way. I'm dead without her. Rest now, boy. You won't make it 3 steps with that head of yours. How is he? D'Artagnan asked. He looks okay except for his head. He's going to need help and rest before he can travel. D'Artagnan cleaned and bandaged Dal's wound. It was a type of injury that he feared to heal, lest he swoon and lose the vital control that he needed to avoid injuring himself or his patient. If only his father were here to instruct him in the more intricate uses of Odin's runes. But his father was waiting for him in Valhalla, and all that he had to go on were childhood memories. The healing rune that he knew required that he accept his patient's injuries as his own before the rune's power would fully manifest. If he was to falter at the wrong moment, the power could turn on him and consume him. And so he tended to Dal conventionally, stitching his hand wound with a well-sharpened bone needle and thin cords made of rabbit's tendons. Over this, he made a poultice of healing herbs and freshly spun spider's webs. The spider silk was resilient and helped to keep the wound closed beneath the final wrap of cloth bandages. When he was finished, Dal felt much better, but his concussion continually tried to force sleep upon him. Carmen made certain that he would stay awake by asking him about his wife and the battle. What's your wife's name, Dal? He was physically well proportioned. A Lycurgus man, as Lycurgus men tended to be. Standing just under 5 feet tall, his shock of hair was the same dark brown color as his eyes. These were his most telling features, for they seemed somehow haunted, as if his spirit were far away. He was neither young nor old, but he had a certain boyishness that Kerr mistakenly believed to be youth. He spoke of his wife with pride. Karina. We came to the village with the Baron, and we helped to build almost every house in this town. We used all of our wealth to start our farm, and we had many acres of fine corn, but that's all gone now. The Orcs have taken everything from us. The pain of his injury made him pause for a moment, and then he continued. She joined in the fight. Lord knows that I couldn't have stopped her, and her blade claimed the lives of countless Orcs before they captured her. I was plying my warbow from the rooftops when I saw them drag her away screaming. But suddenly my building was engulfed in flames, and I was forced to leap to the ground. In the chaos of battle, I landed poorly, and my head struck a water trough. After that, I can remember no more. Closing his eyes, he tried not to think about Karina's terrible situation. And that's where we'll leave it tonight on page 221, about 1/3 of the way down. And next time we'll start up episode 21 right here. And remember, as always, read Kur's Rage, part 1 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga, by me, and all of the continuing novels, such as The Drums of Doom, part 2, and The Last Admiral, part 3. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a great night.